Fearless Women is sponsored by the Women's Suffrage Centennial Commission.
My name is Haben Girma. I'm a disability rights advocate, lawyer, speaker, and author. My book is called Haben, the Deafblind Woman Who Conquered Harvard Law. And as the name tells you, I'm deafblind. I have limited vision and hearing, and I grew up in a sighted hearing world. I was born and raised in California, and I'm still living in California in the Bay Area. I'm talking to you from my living room. I don't actually work here. I work in my desk, and that's where I sat down to write my book. My deaf blindness is not the thing that made life difficult. It was ableism that made life difficult. Ableism is the belief that disabled people are inferior compared to non-disabled people. It's not true. We're not inferior, but ableism keeps moving throughout our society and saying disabled people don't matter, therefore don't make the service accessible, don't provide medical care, and all kinds of unfair biases. When I was younger, I wasn't sure what to do. Do I just accept inferior service? But over time, I learned to advocate. I started to demand inclusion, and I learned about the Americans with Disabilities Act, which celebrated its 30th anniversary this year. The ADA prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities. I learned about it when I was in college, and my book shares this process where I discover advocacy, the ADA, turn it into a career, and learn to advocate for people with disabilities. If you should take away one message from the book, it's the concept of ableism. Ableism is the belief that disabled people are inferior to non-disabled people. My book teaches people to identify ableism and join us in working to fight ableism. I'm an advocate, so I looked back into my life and asked myself, what are the lessons from my life that could help people advance opportunities for disabled people around the United States and around the world? I picked stories from my life that teach people about ableism. Ableism intersects with sexism, racism. It pops up in small conversations in the kitchen when you're making PB&J. So I wanted to show people all the different ways ableism hurts us so people can learn to identify it and work to remove it from our society. My parents are from Eritrea and Ethiopia. In parts of those countries, people believe that disability is a curse on the family. It was really, really difficult to deal with that kind of oppression within one's culture. My parents had to learn to resist that idea. We had to learn to define disability for ourselves. Disability is not a burden on the family. Disability is an opportunity for innovation. So we had to come up with our own definition of what disability means. When I was growing up, I would try to tell my parents, I can't cook, I can't do chores. You can't ask blind kids to do chores or cook. They weren't buying it. They still insisted that I cook and do chores. And on the one hand, as a kid, I was frustrated. But on the other, as an adult, I'm grateful that they ensured I got those life skills. There are lots of parents of disabled kids who tell their kids, don't do chores, don't cook, it's dangerous. Then those kids grow up into adults who've never developed important independence and life skills. That's frustrating. Parents need to help their kids explore their environments, and develop important life skills like how to take care of one's home. Most of our society is built for non-disabled people, and that forces disabled people to come up with solutions from everything from cooking in the kitchen to solving international challenges. One of the things I had to learn to solve is how do you communicate where most people rely on vision and hearing to communicate. I tapped into my strengths. One of my strengths is my sense of touch. I use it more than most people. Tactile intelligence is something I've cultivated for a long time. It helps me while partner dancing. It helps me while rock climbing and in all kinds of situations. When I'm walking, I'm feeling the different textures through my feet, from pavement to carpet to hardwood floors. So tactile intelligence is something I've developed. And when looking at ways to communicate with people, I immediately tapped into it. So I was looking at technologies, touch-based solutions, and in 2010, a new piece of technology came out that supported Bluetooth and Braille. I'll hold it up. So I'm holding up a little device with Braille on the bottom, and I run my fingers over the dots to feel the letters. When I connect this to an external keyboard, people can type on the keyboard and I can read in Braille. Most people don't know Braille, don't know sign language, but most people can type, especially millennials. So I found that communication became much, much easier when I tapped into one of my strengths, my sense of touch. My hearing is terrible. My vision is terrible. But my sense of touch is excellent. So I tapped into that and way more opportunities came up for me. Disabled people do this all the time. When you increase disability on your team or at your schools, more innovations come in, more solutions to problems. So it benefits all of us to increase hiring and diversity in our teams. Traditional philosophy texts exclude a lot of thinkers and knowledge that exists in the world. There's a bias towards white male philosophers, excluding a lot of the wisdom developed by Black, people of color, women, and disabled people who exist across those different minority groups. So we need to rebuild our libraries to include more diverse thinkers and philosophers, because the traditional texts that have been praised throughout Western history exclude a lot of critical voices. Why am I passionate about social justice? Because I want to stay alive. I want access and opportunities that are available to non-disabled people. Disabled Black and brown people are at greater risk of police violence. About a third to half of those killed by the police are disabled people. A lot of individuals in power, police officers, TSA agents, walk into situations assuming one can see, hear, move in certain ways, and that is terrifying and leads to many deaths. Knowing all these injustices exist moved me to advocate for change, to be a social justice advocate. And in my book, I talk about a situation in college where all I wanted was to eat. I wanted access to food. And the food information was only available in a visual format. As a blind student, I couldn't read the menu, and I asked the cafeteria, please provide the menu in Braille or post it online or email it to me. I have technology that allows me to access websites and emails. The cafeteria manager told me, "We're very busy. We have over 1,000 students. We don't have time to do special things for students with special needs." Just to be clear, eating is not a special need. Everyone needs to eat. There's this myth that there are two kinds of people, dependent and independent. Everyone is interdependent. Many of you like drinking coffee. Very few grow your own coffee beans. You depend on other people to grow your beans, your food, build your computers. That's okay as long as we're honest about the fact that we're all interdependent. The cafeteria manager didn't understand this. So for several months, I just tolerated the lack of access to food. I was a vegetarian back then. How do you know which station is serving vegetarian food when you can't read the menu? It was frustrating. As a deaf-blind student, I would go to a station at random, get food, find a table, try the food, and discover an unpleasant surprise. What was I to do? Maybe disabled students should just accept inferior service? Maybe that was just going to be my life, doomed to inferior services forever and ever. I talked to friends, advocates, and they reminded me it's my choice. It's our choice to accept unfairness or advocate for justice. I went back to the manager and explained, the Americans with Disabilities Act prohibits discrimination against students with disabilities. And if you don't provide access to the menus, I'm going to take legal action. I had no idea how to do that. I was 19. I couldn't afford a lawyer. Now I know there are nonprofit legal centers that help students with disabilities. But back then I didn't know that. All I knew is I had to try. I had to do something. The next day, the manager apologized and promised to make the menus accessible. He actually did. He started emailing the menus. Life became delicious. The next year, a new blind student came to the college, and he had immediate access to the menus. That taught me when I advocate, it helps everyone who comes after me. That experience in college inspired me to go to law school. I went to Harvard Law. Harvard said they'd never had a deaf-blind student before. I told them I'd never been to Harvard Law School before. We didn't know what all the solutions would be, but we engaged in an interactive process to find the solutions and make it work. Now I work as an advocate for disabled people. I know there's injustice, and I know there's a way to end injustice. All of us have the choice to accept unfairness, to tolerate it, or advocate for justice. My book, Haben, the Deaf-Blind Woman Who Conquered Harvard Law, helps people identify all the injustices against disabled people. Well, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, and encourages people to join us in fighting to end injustice against disabled people. A lot of people don't know about access for the disabled. There are tools like the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, Android and iOS accessibility guidelines, guidelines for designing accessible physical buildings. Some people say they don't know about them, so you give them an opportunity to learn about them. But if they have education and still refuse to make their services accessible, then there's the ADA. Then there are consequences. People have had 30 years to learn this. There are no more excuses. Research is important to all advocates. Strong advocates research what they're talking about. Books help you gain a deeper understanding of a topic. When you are facing a difficult situation, that's exactly when you need to be an advocate for justice. If you have the energy, yes, advocate for change. I do understand that sometimes those of us who advocate all the time experience advocacy fatigue, and we need to take a break, recharge. At that point, it really helps when you have a community who can step in for you to help continue the advocacy, who can cheer for you and empathize and help you recharge. Community is a really big part of advocacy. So, two things. One, there's a lot of injustice against disabled people. If you can turn that off and pretend it doesn't exist and stop thinking about it, that's a privilege. It's a privilege to not think about disability access issues. Libraries around the country have the opportunity to increase access for disabled patrons. Texts, books are critical to knowledge and expanding opportunities. Make sure digital services, library websites, digital books are accessible to blind readers and readers with print reading disabilities like dyslexia and learning disabilities. Increase access to Braille texts as well. The National Library Service for the Blind has been a huge part of my life. Growing up, I would get so many books from NLS. Harry Potter books, I got those from the Library of Congress. The Library of Congress Braille and Talking Book Program is one of the few programs in the country where blind people can get physical hardcover Braille books, books that I could actually hold and feel. This is precious and rare when it's really, really hard for blind people to get our hands on Braille books. So for most of my life, when I got a physical Braille book, it was through the Library of Congress. We also have computer Braille, refreshable Braille, such as on devices like this. And when a digital book is compatible with screen readers, blind people can read it on their Braille computers. So we also can access Braille books digitally. We do need to increase access to Braille computers. They are expensive. There are some programs, government programs and nonprofits that provide Braille computers to blind individuals, but it's really difficult to get access to those.